Countless is also entirely overwhelming. View the debate in terms of the lens of sufficient versus optimality. Their evidence just indicates that adaptation is sufficient solve and less optimal. Unless there's impact to this, solve deficit due to the risk of the adaptation outweigh. Now the Campbell has covered, has the US covered 4.8% of the ocean with microbubbles. Latex microbubbles that reflect sunlight back into the atmosphere. They reduces overall albedo and decreases the temperature of the atmosphere, which is sufficient to offset entire warming. That's 22 Morgan damage. The internally to the entire affirmation is based on climate change. So it's a one-shot kill. Now the second plague of the Campbell established these innovations that to solve the manufacturing in the entirety of the United States, which is the reason why we have a price solvent test. Another first solvent difference with the manufacturing of Campbell is that manufacturing shifting to high-tech R&D right now. The firm is just low-tech R&D based upon the maximum of just based on business model. Only by controlling this high-tech R&D can we solve synthetic account that fails. That's in Mirror 114. The U.S. needs to transition towards the next common that order to advance into must be pulled in new direction. AI's country known and competitive U.S. economy not regain preeminence with out of the leisure AI now specifically for aerospace. That's critical. So how Mirror 114 advanced industry, the industry range aerospace, incidental IT medical factors over 10% coming in 40 pounds extra over 4 million gear job, a market car job. Now the Campbell he said permutation. Well, that's gonna link to the net benefit. And he said that the Campbell doesn't solve warming. The Cardi reads on this is in the context of regular bubbles, not latex particles. Latex bubbles don't pop. You can't pop plastic. Now the Campbell stabilizes global climate change and avoids your distance. That's cities in 2011. The albedo plays a dominant role determining global average temperature increasing outweighs for making fewer ecological price and risk of local land. Marine photosynthesis is commonly nutrient differential solid equals and cooling system wind giant microbubbles throughout the history. Hydro reflect the local reverse modulation, planting albedo without injection model. Now microbubbles solves all types of tech issues. That's Morgan 2011. The use of latest technology opens the door for engineering particle possibilities of product possibly control the problem to different problems in core more quality. Region hollow core must scattering part what will take to reverse carbon money is cheap. Restricting this resume last using core shell material probably account for multiple scattering will see this cost of the info. It does not require exotic engineering. Uses existing materials at a regular inside existing product capability. Point you are electric part of hollow core shell more and basic conventional stabilization that is enacted in some ways and particles retained near the surface. Not going to manufacturing event. Couple of problems actually that was only into conditionality. Conditionality is not going to issue. We get two non-contract conditions pushed in a status quo we can't cross the line. Our office information processing Tesla from multi-angle forcing firms like the best argumentation and that to make strategic reactive decisions, large amount of information and short time period. That's key to managing information overload and decision to action. Now two is ideological flexibility. Multiple conditionality is key to developing real estate after both sides. That's necessary for real-world decision making because you get tested from the left and the right. Also multiple permutation words. Makes the alpha moving target the concept of both from the creation of 3 that's not a single camera. Now our deep and strategic user and now with strategic add-ons checking the counter indications. Also two is that two and that unpredictably is good. Forces to 1 year to strategic thinking is in its level. Also we don't reduce the depth of education. Teams and now we go for arguments with little coverage. Just why it's only running this as and throwaway arguments. Also they are more conditional. They didn't specify the agent which allows too easy shifting to kill our ground. Now go to manufacturing advantage. Propounds with the manufacturing advantage because Guardian claims it's long term. So right now the manufacturing industry is doing fine and resilient. That's the only piece of PwC evidence. Our uniqueness post which should be the gold standard for uniqueness evidence because we are on a 24th article news evidence. The manufacturing is improving right now. That's moving to constantly manufacturing. Double the summer indicate US manufacturing totally say rebuttal comes stabilizing points of significant sales. There's the many comments in business advantages we'll see a bigger content manufacturing. Making manufacturing optimistic outlook for the sales advantage. Another framing is that all this evidence is just about the border. The broader manufacturing industry in the United States is completely fine. Now the deterrence impact doesn't make sense because nuclear primacy still solves all war. That's Libra President China and nuclear primacy prevented war. But the first China will hold the US force and nuclear laws of all the use of nuclear primacy will contain the fine conventional label. China and nuclear attack nuclear primacy make a preemptive percent more powerful US leader. The nuclear deterrence arsenal does not just disappear because now the contaminants rate economic powers not key to Germany. The capability evidence is lowering the context of the DIB and so that the US leaders in that way. Now there's no impact offshore and Gaza. That's timing 3.6. The rapidly changing nature US global climate change motivation economic change has scrambled the wave of the global economy. The broader idea was less dependent on manufacturing create goods. The labor costs made noble and be critical factor in global decision. Robotics are practically lower. The price of labor economies are modifying supply chain providing also the practice of manufacturing productive slow to pace innovation. Now there's no decline in US economic power. Less labor in 2008 American continue making pre-dominant challenge manageable. Less often than the stars of rate unmatched. The US can already first in education. Right on today. The Democrat action favor the US probably country pre-dominant. No country possesses the capacity of the United States military mass. Now we stand as the US will never intervene in China war. But even if the first at Taiwan wars in that will because it is a basketball trigger which the manufacturing possession does nothing about. No, even if the conflict breaks out, the US intervenes because it has no interest in getting involved in the war with its biggest trading partner Arab society. He not intervene checks any risk of war between US and China. That's just common sense. Now the US will not intervene to help Taiwan with a solid risk because all the like him US intelligence gathering trying to delay US military response competition Taiwan's trade delay. The last China advance is golden and the present US compared to conflict. The Chinese hands capabilities has caused a potential really common. Thus may reduce the revenue to US decision making to intervene in trade with China. Now the warming flow. This is where you all have messed up. Because they are first to mishandle the warming versus the water vapor. He just said though, according to reasonable choice, he just says that what leads to global warming, which leads to water vapor. He said, you the thesis of my term, which says that water vapor is a positive impact. Your card argued with this. The Andrews have insights correlation saying that when CO2 rises, that decrease in water vapor in the high altitude stratosphere, which is an internal link to the warming impact, which makes most of the office on the CO2 agriculture flow go away because it's all in the context of the temperature I can look at, which is what all your impact elements do. Now the second, now go back to the top of the philosophy. There's no impact of warming elements. The will inside by your diverse records from the past, saying that even if carbon dioxide levels high in the past, there have been no increase in biodiversity. He cites 3 impacts. One is resource war. Resource war won't happen because either the camp plant or the water vapor return will solve, because right, also the CO2 agriculture answers this resource war argument, because we're going to actually increase the amount of resources. Also, the reasons disease happens, disease does not cause warming. You're probably not going to read that in 1 year. Now, go to the CO2 agriculture terms. CO2 agriculture, you actually messed up here. Because the collapse in global biosphere is inevitable in the world and planet. Global agriculture crisis coming right now. Famines will be inevitable by 2050. Absent CO2 plants will be less efficient for global development. Unused farmlands, collapsing global biodiversity. The fertility uniqueness and flows. Now, because even global agriculture is sustainable now. That's the reason why we need more CO2 because that's the only thing that's going to make plants productive. I need these guys with this too. Now, this always in turn indicates first off, plenty of risk. I can see that there's near certain risk of incoming agriculture 2050 and all public exchange. Now, precautionary principle means you fall 90 ISO 2011. The matching between the food supply demand, so low to leave extremely after stable requirement. Precautionary principle demands we do everything to stay well. Food is really crisis and encourage not only 50 crucial any policy must be not to interfere with CO2 concentration. Now, time frame means you vote negative. That is easily CO2 causes the anti-working essential with damage by the millions too. Global warming appeals we got some activity immediately over this. The scientific plans to match the common warming. We do not have a luxury in the case of species and positive. What we do with the next specific decade is turn along the future. Now, it always warming. That's easily causes agricultural crisis over the climate project. Agriculture is almost certainly covered whereas the debate of the climate crisis. The middle of the several technological cannot manual forecast problem. We resolve these issues with mention involving pre-conservation. We have the terminal agricultural project environmental crisis will occur. Now, no new one-year arguments. It's only write 3 cards with it. If they message a direct response to negative block argument or a extension of the argument, no new one-year cards. Now, the says it kills me, except this argument is cut down because the one evidence specifically says that increasing yields. We cite multiple statistics, and now the CO2 scheme decline. The first is all-around benefits. That's ISO 2001. The extra CO2 plants refining everything do better. They grow bigger and faster, producing more leaves and larger roots, flowers, gain and food there. Since that's the exacerbation you study now highlight that show that everything. Now, the only CO2 solves the internal link that is easily discussed before. Doubling CO2 the problem is rise 8%. Every single country rights over the land efficiency of the plant. Increasing CO2 pay huge job and increase global output. We're taking the less than day 2. We should be able to meet that expansion food needs. If it does bring on the current. Now, your nitrogen uptake installing steps, it doesn't make sense. That's ISO 2001. Rising levels and CO2 will produce more branch produce this. We should allow them to be filling explore soil for extra nitrogen, tiny bacteria, and now that nitrogen to make it available plants are found everywhere. And CO2 enhance the ability to perform this. Now, the user you messed up the last argument flow. He extended saying that CO2 is a negative feedback, causing plant environments will cause more aerosols in the air and has a climate effect, which is the reason. He says that temperature will kill the plants. We said no, it doesn't. They're resilient. Thomas is also the species now following the climate change model predictive species will improve the modeling and temperature levels on scale. Lake predict climate fluctuation. The forces are capable of recovering during warm period. The hazardous periods will enable the response to climate change. High levels of tolerant dry temperature fluctuation. Plants were able to survive with the environment continued to become fragile. Long result predicting species appear to disappear by course model. There is no impact to CO2 rise as hyper 2011 from the current levels of 1,000 people take 300 years. Animals not even though it's a doubling of CDQ plants would love it. The frequency of extreme events has decreased in the past 150 years as CO2 has increased. Correlation is not causation. There have been many warmings and coolants when CO2 did not change. There is no evidence for the increase in CO2 in the medieval warm period, not for a decrease.
How do latex bubbles prevent climate change?
Because latex bubbles reflect the sunlight, which increases the Earth albedo.
How do we know latex bubbles will reflect sunlight?
Because Morgan did small-scale studies on these latex particles.
Wait, small scale. How do we know it can be applied to like food carrying US?
Well, that's your burden to make a solvents differential. Because just because you have latex particles in a small mass space and they reflect sunlight doesn't mean it will fail when it's larger.
Wait, so okay, latex bubbles, but it'll. How many do we put? Like where do we
cover 4.8% of the Earth's oceans?
Can I clarify in the link wall here? You read how many of the cards?
Link wall, I read the first ESO card, the second ESO card, and the 5th card about nitrogen uptake.
Awesome.
Okay, water vapor turn. Why is water vapor exactly a stronger greenhouse gas than CO2?
Your card agrees with this because water vapor is the biggest positive feedback. It has scientific properties that make it more likely to absorb the sunlight and stay in the earth. You drop the thesis of our argument that says CO2 directly trades off with water vapor. You just write a card saying that water vapor is a positive feedback in response.
Okay, so the counterplan in terms of what it does with latex bubbles, does it develop them only in the U.S.? What exactly does it do?
It covers the ocean. It develops in the U.S. and covers the ocean.
So like, how would it be implemented? Like, would it take a long time?
Get on a boat and put the bubbles in the ocean.
Wait, so like, do we just put them in the ocean?
Just put them in the ocean surface.
The ocean. How much exactly of the ocean do we have to cover?
Once for the third time, 4.8%.
Okay, so exactly, does the counterplan have to resolve any of our modeling internal links to be effective?
No.
Okay. Climate change turn. So if agriculture is collapsing now, why exactly would CO2 reverse that?
Because CO2 makes plants much more efficient. We read multiple pieces of evidence saying that when the CO2 levels rise up, as your affirmative says, it will cause plants to become more efficient. And also the second argument is it makes land use more arable. Because right now, there's a bunch of desertified land where plants can't grow. If plants can grow in those lands, that'll make those lands more efficient so that more plants will grow in those areas and absorb more sunlight, because plants have a cooling effect because they increase the amount of shading, which reflects the sunlight. And also a second effect is that plants increase cloud modification and decrease the amount of clouds, which also has a cooling effect, but clouds are a positive feedback.
Okay, who are the ISOs?
The ESOs are a group of scientists with PhDs with some multiple studies on this. You missed your invite opportunity to see, by the way.
Did I?
Yeah.
Okay. Just checking. So the counterplan generates the net benefit. The terms on the case are the net benefits of the counterplan.
No.
And are there any other net benefits of the counterplan?
You'll see.
Well, is the Mexico Ptix, is that?
We'll see.
Okay, cool. Manufacturing terms, your evidence about offshoring is from March.
Manufacturing terms?
I'm sorry, manufacturing defects, offshoring defects. Your evidence is from March, and it's speculative as to whether or not offshoring will occur. So do you have any evidence that reflects the status quo? The evidence is from
We have multiple pieces of evidence saying that offshoring, even if it occurs, that doesn't matter. The Heinemann evidence says that it's not, labor costs aren't even critical. There's factors in global location decisions. And also the U.S. is leading in this high-tech manufacturing right now, like things like robotics and higher productivity, which lower the price of labor in the U.S., which will make it more likely for growth that's coming.
So, order. It's going to be the process care plan, the critique, the debt ceiling dissent, and then the Mexican politics dissent.
Give me a second. Process counter plan, critique, debt ceiling, Mexico.
But you can just keep it on continuous.
I need it. Okay, I need it before you start.
Oh, okay.
Give me your word.
Okay. Anyone not ready? Capital disease permutations just a test of competition. We are not going for the critique that state is never and there's a utilitarian only way to want to raise does not cost more, so they have no office on we're not going for a debt ceiling. They have messed this up. Why will they have not read economic interdependence defense impact defense? That means economic collapse will still cause extinction miscalculation. Checks become self-radicalized. We will concede that this is not intrinsic. That means the dissent is not intrinsic. That means they can pass it. And we will concede that debt ceiling is not key to the economy and the political capital is not key. That I'll go to the Mexican politics. This is where the impact matter. We read the Hale card in the 1 and 2, which indicates that Mexico's economy is key to the United States economy that will collapse the global economic crisis. Question is miscalculation, even if it's not you just the bioterrorism impact anyway. It costs the price. It costs the dishours in terms of because it costs the extinction. Any pathogen that's going to spread rapidly and cost the extinction of the United States. Carbon from our Sandberg evidence indicates that geoengineering pathogens will outweigh any technological advances that will be able to wipe out the human race, not the uniqueness debate. You're going to have to frame the entire debate from the uniqueness presented because we can only be sure of what is going on in status quo. The plan only has the risk of altering what is going on in the status quo right now. The uniqueness evidence is from a month ago. It is not indicating the energy policy. Now the PC is gaining public support. Open that PR Newswire 920. Swimming energy will place which will country president to support adaptation. 53% Mexico currently favoring the remain possible with Mexican public. Trusting the early support for energy the starting is Canadian for houses. Mexico expects strongly allowing natural oil company payments to retain more income than Mexican people. Families that beloved trouble family member that needs help now. Education program and reforms do not thump it. There's a weapon in 1918 has opposition for Mexico energy reform had gone away. Time only recently demonstrated Mexico energy reform attracted striking teacher Mexico heading energy reform. What's that? 53% responsible for putting in the energy reform is key to its role. Reform is 53% of responses sitting up roughly the continent that Mexico needs to change to have that order approval energy plan and jump by 4% now. They say that the plan is key to solving. This is in the context of 2005 when there was no Ptix reform. Now neither presidency will come back on and give it which the United States Mexico has grown skeptical. This is Nelson in 13. PR have been Washington involved in the rest of PR dominating Mexican political life. U.S. officials said the relationship have become to erode Mexico. Mexican government be skeptical about the values of cooperating with the United States. Wait, that's flipping back. Dynamic Mexico cooperation. The administration officials have already wanting for reconsider this arrangement. People are very skeptical of cooperation about border and the border can be made so for the best interest of most fixing. A lot of people think we have to go back to the way. Now, improving border infrastructure will be politically unpopular for the Mexican government. This country, 13 actually no. Past Mexican election proves that expanded the NAD bank has been unpopular. Strike for 06 or rather wants to pay it to finance the Mexican Central Authority. So animosity among the candidate and support the struggle. Or rather has especially considered relations with the representative community of Mexico during the political structure and escape from the status quo. It will be harder for the next person to mandate for the train. Now they say that it's going on.
What last name?
Border infrastructure investment will be tied to discussion of drug war. This probably in 13. The prospect might be directly impacted by the political figure investment border. The infrastructure has not led to actually exponentially increase the trade costs in the border. Using for power Mexican cooperation to security for violence in Mexico and implementation is likely that presidential charges and scripts ongoing. And Mexico enforces more play. Now they say engage behind. Now this is causing meetings do not solve. The has gotten lucky before, but public opposition is going to be growing grand. In 13 years, the problem structural reform, the state run industry conference overall outdated labor, all running out of future president lucky opposition. We can divide that may not last. The opposition party will withdraw support recently, and they say we do not solve for the energy reform. This is in the context that there's not enough a constitutional amendment which needed to reform includes energy reform is critical to rejuvenate Ptix. Also, in 13, if we do nothing, we run into the stall growing. We will make the energy sector one of the most powerful sector in the national economy. Mr. Diplomat will see Ptix heavy standard which will lead to Ptix outstanding investment will allow the pipeline have come to be ran towards the country easy order is quickly drying out the energy reform. The most important muster is reverse causal. Does Nietzsche made 15 past 20% squeeze in Mexico nationalism, oil protection, result by 41% the same period if the industry is average after they have a full budget crisis. Now, energy for forward sells Mexican manufacturing turns the case out. Russell and 13% Australia monopoly is a crucial industry. These are the potential competitive for manufacturing and increased production and undoubtedly make manufacturing in Mexico more competitive. Mexico dramatically reduce fuel cost country more cost with manufacturing. They say elections stormed that was about the PRD may be historically strong, but they lack political will. Gallegos A15 to fight indication of racial and ignorance of to fight in Mexico left their short between nation polar heterogeneous democracy is when. Now they say that when Navarre is talking about the context of the public PC is capital, and only congressmen matter. Also, it is all talking about infrastructure investment in rural areas, not the border area, not specifically the plan at all. And Ptix proved that economic was united through producing a nationalist backlash start in 12. Producing a national backlash to Mexico's charge because the legitimacy of Washington instead of having a reputation solely they will consider more that United States will have notion to translate the power and domination of Mexico. The policymaker will still get to avoid the appearance of being too willing as well from northern part of the Mexican border.
Not working on anything. I'm trying to avoid all sports news about the 49ers once again. They killed 49ers.
They do.
The Panthers beat the Giants 30-0.
Sad.
Yeah, might not have been a year for New York.
How many interceptions do you guys
No interceptions.
Really
12 for 23, 115 yards, no TDs.
I think we're going to go back to those on first. And then that makes sense. The rationale.
in and out, I guess, first is how long?
So Darren dropping the kickoff by the time.
Keep going.
Yeah. And obviously the lead in there.
Yeah. Coach Charlie needs some night book.
That would not be a lie.
Could you read both colors of highlighting the one in our?
Yeah. Actually, I read the one. I'm pretty sure every card has one highlighting except for that link card that Michael made me read.
There's
That's
a whole
what.
bunch of link cards that have 2 colors. Do you read all of it?
Yes.
Four by four?
You need 16 days?
Dude, you said you would not have any hummus this week because the hummus was too tough. Now you're
no
saying
hummus
you
equals more headboards.
But no cheese.
No cheese, like
It wouldn't be 4 by 4 if there was no cheese, it would just be 4.
It would just be 4.
I like the 4 patty.
4 patty.
even that really is like the unhealthiest thing I've eaten in like a month and a half, probably.
But it's worth it.
Yeah.
Because it's in now. Yeah. Which I actually did not even have it.
Like I'm gonna have to run like literally like 12
Right,
hours.
it's not open 24/7.
I think how much was it?
Okay, well, yeah. They'll be open on Sunday at like 10.
Wait, they're not. Are they the place that's closed on Sundays?
No, that's Chick-fil-A.
I know Chick-fil-A is.
No, they're not open.
In and out was
They
never
opened
open.
Sunday last year. Certainly.
Colin, you don't have to
What's that?
You don't have to
You guys extended warming weekend, correct?
I would guess 9. You said 9 or 10. We can Google this.
It's not about 9 or 10. I don't think it's a, if it's 9, I don't know if it's gonna be open Sunday night at 9 PM.
I don't know which side it's to.
Okay,
Dude, I'm pretty sure.
Sam, cut a card.
Card.
I need a card. I need to see a card.
That's pretty
In and out Dallas hours. Better be the first result.
Because there's only one in
In and out burger Sunday hours, 1 AM, baby. 7940 North Central Expressway. Love it. In and out burger.
That's actually the one we were at.
Sunday hours, 10:30 AM to 1 AM.
No, that's the one on the other side of town.
That is close.
Really? On Central Expressway?
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay, hold on. The
You
other
guys
one-
can go all of these on 1 AM.
504 use.
Yeah, the other one's open to 1 AM too.
I have 344 left.
North Dallas locations.
Let's make it 344 and a half.
Nasty. Keep track of your prep time.
There's a discrepancy here.
344 and a half.
You did this last day too.
Deal with it.
Track your prep time too.
Yeah, of course.
How much prep time do we have? 6:27.
Actually, I was thinking my second travel.
Good one.
That's 1 second.
Bernadette.
I thought you seem so disappointed about that. You're just so excited about the in and out being open till 1.
I want to take there before 1.
Okay, enough route.
All right, I'm gonna need some.
Now
prep
it's
time.
How do you feel?
I'm not involved in this.
I got 3 minutes 32 seconds.
I'm not involved in this.
Oh,
You wait till I get back.
No.
I'm not judging or debating.
No, it's continuous. Oh, okay.
There are 2 docs. Do you want me to?
Please combine.
This is what we always do.
You implore us.
I'm begging. How much prep do you want?
I think the team that requests the combination, I think it's their prep time that needs to be used as well. What is it?
He's just making arbitrary.
You know me.
Yes.
That's
That's
why
why
your rules are
I
arbitrary.
blame the team giving the cards because they're the ones who created them.
Yeah, she's right.
Well, the one demanding the joint speech docs is like
I was
the
given
team
that.
creating the delay. Like, there doesn't have to be a delay.
If I let you blame it on me, can we do this?
I mean, like, if you didn't demand it together, they would have to flash 2 docs, so that would take them twice the
I
time.
vote F.
Okay.
Dallas
Ready,
side.
motherfucker?
There we go.
Why are you?
I guess I'm done for a little while.
Somehow the team is prepping James that way to the
The 2 judges that flow the rebuttals give their decisions first.
What college room was there? Someone had like an asthma attack and they were
third judge, and like so Jim lost on the coin flip or something.
Oh, that was it was
Berkeley.
it was JV Reese that got sick, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was JV.
Oh no, better than Fullerton.
I don't remember which one.
It was some California. It was either Fullerton or USC or Berkeley. I don't remember which one.
They're all pretty solid.
Alright, what would be the order, Katie?
All right, the order is going to be the manufacturing advantage, the warming advantage, the warming counter plan, the depth ceiling disad, and then the Ptix.
Advantage 1, Advantage 2, counter plan, U.S. politics, Mexican politics.
Warming counter plans between warming and U.S. politics.
Yeah, Advantage 1, Advantage 2, counter
Oh,
plan,
yes,
domestic
got
politics.
it, good.
You got the order here.
Advantage 1 is manufacturing.
I got it right.
Yes, you're
I
right.
got it right.
Wait, Mexico politics first? US politics.
We should run biopolitics.
First off is Mexican politics, second off is Mexican politics, third off is biopolitics.
Garrett,
You're the one who came up with
root
that
cause doesn't
idea.
equal solvency.
Giving me that rule.
Mr. Ablekop.
You should Katie.
MCK Killer.
Team Bunny. Garrett Bear.
All right, ready? They can see the frame for unique space is just a snapshot of the status quo. Manufacturing is fine right now. It's decreasing. It's going to decrease in the long term because nearshoring is key to stated that's Wilson-Lee evidence. Even if their evidence speaks to the longer term trend, they've considered the U.S. and Mexico interdependent, which means we access the whole overall manufacturing base for evidence is specific to the border. Now they say transfers make sense because of nuclear primacy, but no evidence is specific to conventional terms. It says air power is key to be able to deter China because nuclear primacy. They know we won't retaliate with nuclear weapons. Now they say economic power is the key to hedge better evidence specific to defense industrial base. It says it's key to deter China. Handle evidence as manufacturing. The only way to be able to deter China in the long term. Now they say no impact offshore. Yes, there is an impact offshore in the way it causes wage increase. It means we aren't able to sustain our manufacturing base, and that kills the economy. Now there is a decline to our economic power. Also, Taiwan is not inevitable in the stats code. Only exports because of tension. It only exports because of tension, which only exists because of manufacturing. If we deter them from producing those weapons in the first place because of air power, they would not escalate. Also, we would against U.S.-China war miscalculation, and miscalculation means that the U.S. will get drawn in warming advantage.
No, declining manufacturing base means we're not ahead anymore.
Declining manufacturing base means we're not ahead anymore. Warming advantage. We're going to concede that there's no terminal impact warming, which means the only thing they have to deal with on this floor are the CO2 ag terms. There's no empirical reason why any of their terms are true. You should disregard the evidence because it's all from the ITSO study, which sucks. I don't care if it wasn't in the 2AC because evidence indices get to be in the one area when you read a ton of new cards. Now the first card has no warrants. The second card is from the ITSO study, which is not qualified. They have no qualification for. And the third evidence just talks about branching root system, extend or extend evidence. It says the CO2 does not boost yield because it reduces nitrogen and protein in leaves. Leaves outweigh roots in terms of absorbing CO2 because leaves store CO2 and roots are also bugs. Well, eat more plants and also definitely turns out agriculture decline. Now that is the killer evidence. It means that means that you're insufficient to solve now. Now, the evidence that the plants were able to survive in unfavorable environmental conditions, which prove their defense to warming terms since plants were able to survive in unfavorable environmental conditions, proves that they don't get access to any of this. Their tech development solve the impact Thompson 11 tool. They don't use soil production, increase genetic effects, individual crop monitoring. They're just to be done to produce more outcome for your research mouth to improve life. There's no reason mouth to get in the 21st century. Yeah, that looks fine. Warming counterplants, if that didn't go for the warming impact, I don't have to answer any of that. The only thing I'm going to answer is the innovation about manufacturing. This is not specific. Our evidence, the evidence way better talks about how transportation cost effective the world order. Even if wages are getting closer in the status quo, transportation, that just proves that transportation costs are the key distinction, which means that the counterplan does not solve manufacturing because it doesn't solve for our aerospace based on the border, but only the plan is sufficient to solve it. They expect it's an erase and reject the team. This is a stupid argument, deck ceiling. The plan solves the terminal impact. There's no reason manufacturing is sufficient to solve the economy because it spills over globally, which means economic decline is not inevitable either. With debt ceiling isn't key to the economy, which means economic decline is not inevitable. That makes sense. No impact to the NISA. There's no impact to bioterror deaths. There were only 4 incidents of modern type of terror. Only 2 of them were fatal. 100. There were only 105 deaths proved. It won't cause extinction. Also, terrorists only have twice as many only have 2 incidents of bioweapons. Means it definitely won't cause extinction. Also, doesn't turn case. It doesn't turn our specific manufacturing internally because their evidence is only about oil price. Our evidence is transportation. If the unique internally now stop. Now I'll do the link to make right here. The plan is key to Ptix reformation for pastor and about evidence because it's specific. All their evidence just speaks to the generic. Their evidence just speaks to generic tendencies. Doesn't assume the U.S. and popular doesn't assume border infrastructure investment. Now the summer and late term one, the summer and late term there's investment now, and there's investment now in it's popular that when Mexicans have 919 by the U.S. official body, especially when talks about the trade relations Mexican officials, no, it's decided with evaluation and structural about the U.S. conference, what they said back to never consider change plans, well, about it Friday will attend first iteration of the high-level economic dialogue, the U.S. Mexican official body will join the Mexican conference, will basically discuss how the countries can further cross border trade, Mexico, and merge their large trade partner, Mexican officials, particularly can discuss where they improve the border, moving across the border, the focus on economy, to shift the U.S. focus, but the border's problems now, their Lynchburg arguments, first of all, they're any kind of adult reasoning for or infrastructure specific evidence, they have no reason to drug wars and popular boom settling, doesn't apply also, their culture, just talks about a lack of political will, it doesn't say that it was affects the overall economy, it suggests specific to a few people now, it doesn't turn the economy, doesn't turn the many impediments and not keep the economy extended held out of evidence, it doesn't result, but it's not sufficient to result for a private investment in their company, which is the reason, which means they can't access any of their internal links because they don't increase the investment in the plan boost need of the fund to the rate of 4% of the new president's tax policy sets consolidate power and experiment choice can form the use of important to do with largely focused on policy. Now it's not passing the statute which for evidence even if it's older because it cites overall trends there. It's not it cites overall trends that won't pass no consensus PR opposition samples and then with the about energy form and then the consolidated PD rate strongly apparent PR God remain found most of fundamental Jacob but still energy status quo won't pass.
Uniqueness controls the direction is a bad model.
Uniqueness controls the direction of the link is a bad model. It's illogical because because it would justify taking any action as long as if we win that there's no link to the dissad, then the case advantage should outweigh.
We have 637.
You should put the samples in video. Right?
Yeah.
We broke it, actually. Carly and I broke it against Obasi and Nicklick in the round robin. No, we broke it at Wake.
Do you remember the advantage that was all about the tortilla?
I do.
That's an underrated one.
Dude, you read it before, wait.
I think we broke it at Kentucky, because we debated on the double.
You broke it at Kentucky because I read Obasi and I like the smaller
Double.
double.
We lost more, but not the other 8.
I remember the impact for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got cards for you.
That would be fantastic. Forceland might be a little mad at me, but how long do you think it'll take?
Do you remember like just getting mad at somebody while you were waiting for like messing with them?
Oh, yeah. I used to be way too intense.
Well, I know
In
that.
fact, I was really used to this. Dropping the
Yeah.
Not really. Yeah, we wandered around.
He had so much ethos with their no laptop.
No
No laptop find
I worked for UIP TV operations.
Still.
I thought you did awesome.
It's just like
Hey, warming advantage. They said. Mexico politics, they said. The counter plan, and then the manufacturing advantage.
Say that one more time.
yeah.
Warming, Mexico politics, counter plan, manufacturing.
Warming, Mexican politics, counterplan manufacturing.
Hell yeah. Anybody not ready? Alright. There's too many dropped arguments on the warming goods debate for you to vote for the election at the end of this round. You have dropped a precautionary principle without the eco cards indicating that you have a precautionary principle right now in order to stop the warming. It's the only thing it'll cause famine and agricultural crisis, which is the reason why you two and action right now is critical. The act stops emissions, which is the reason why all the plants and all the agricultural crisis species in the world are gonna die. No internal link events to this argument that CO2 helps plants and that without CO2 that plants are going to die, which is the reason why we should have changed the calculate outweighs on time frame because if we don't take action now and if we take action now and reverse the warming, that's gonna not have enough CO2 for the plants to survive in the long term, which is the reason why we outweigh on time, which is the reason why you outweigh on time, but you can only die once, which is the reation. But if we win a time of the others today, it also turns China war. Guess why people go to war? Because they need resources and because they are hungry. A reason why China, that's a reason why the food, the hungry, it turns China. Also, famine is a independent, tangible impact. People suffering, people in balance says, in order to stop these people who are suffering all around the world, you need to vote for letting war continue right now. Also turns China war because of economic independence. If everyone runs out of resources and food, that's going to decrease the amount of economic independence the U.S. and China has, which is the reason why they're more likely going to go forward. Now the line by he said she seeing that it's in that first thing is that she had no warrant for why the ESOs are flawed. Nothing about they being funded by the oil companies, nothing about in their own air. Second said this was a new argument. ESO was right in the 1 and C. You shoved out into 2AC. A reason why you don't get new 1 air or inside the question. Also, this argument is done because the ESOs all have PhDs, which makes their studies qualified. That precedes bias because everything has a personal ideological bias. Qualification test the influence of the bias over the validity of claim. Also, too, is that there's no impact to this argument because questions of funding are always political. Their authors are also funded by people with a vested economic interest in shifting away from carbon dioxide. And even if their bias potentially influence the argument, that's the reason that there should be wrong with the substance of the argument. If they can't find anything wrong with the substance of the argument, then you should ignore these arguments in the first place. They say that CO2 does not boost ears because of bugs, except even if bugs eat some plants, there's going to be more plants for the bugs to eat, which is the reason why the plant growth still increases in the long term. This is literally half a sentence with one in car, which is the reason you should prefer iron to warming. The eastern hemisphere says that increases, there's a correlation. It increases by 50% if you double CO2. It also increases the amount of roots that the plants will have, which is the reason why they can uptake more nitrogen and become more productive. It also increases their roots, their flowers, their plants, their stems, and makes the plants a lot stronger based on the carbon comes on the carbon market. That's the reason. Now she said that our defense arguments prove that plants are resilient. This was only in the context of temperature rises. Plants can survive temperature rises, but they cannot survive the lack of CO2, which is a fundamental building block for photosynthesis. That's biology 101. She says technology solves the impact. Once again, a new argument without a justification, except even if she let them get away with this, which you shouldn't, because the 2 is the most time precious species. If you let the 2 and the 1 make new arguments and get new evidence, that skews the debate totally into favor of the affirmative. But even if they do technically solve each of 0.11, the nominal took also taking 20 years to achieve. It may take us 20 years to bring such an innovation from 2 levels of the science of the underlying to identify what needs to reach out. We do not have the time to gamble for overall some massive solving global national. We just rely on the test and true of the CO2 simulation of the crop yield population. We need to not interfere with natural evolution, not go to natural politics that can see that there's no impact to biosphere, not going for this that you don't have a straight argument, not go to warming count like you spend way too little time on the camera and drop the reverse solving steps and say that the manufacturing shift into high-tech R&D right now. Your Baru card is in the context of innovation, not just competitive, which is the reason why we solve this impact better. We solve this impact better. Each of the mirror and Google evidence, but certainly says that. What?
So they solve for econ.
Oh, they don't solve for the economy. That was not one in the 1 yard, nor in the context to AC. Also, actually, write me off something for that. Also, the manufacturing company should solve an internal link for the economy, which is the reason why, if we see an increase in manufacturing stage, we should not link to the economy advantage out there, not go for the manufacturing impact problem. A couple of concessions on the argument also make it easy to debate. First, it's a nuclear primacy argument, but mishandled in the 1 yard. Nuclear primacy makes that there's actually no risk of war because countries are not dumb enough to go to war with a country with nuclear weapons and risk nuclear retaliation. And also, trade doesn't cause. Trade doesn't cause the economy. The food impacts from the economy management because it makes the economic crisis more likely to war the food wars. Now we'll go back to the manufacturing man. The manufacturing sector is also resilient. He's going to try to frame it as triodine, except there's going to be no war because of the economic impact and because of nuclear primacy, which is the reason why the manufacturing sector is resilient. We cite predictive evidence saying that the manufacturing sector is resilient because the more high-tech innovation is coming into the United States. But finally, there's going to be no impact to China war. Economic growth to China means that we control the nation. Instead of being militaristic, their rise is peaceful with cooperation with Japan and Taiwan. Their offshore governments prove this argument. Leaders want this growth, and the only way they can do it is to stay with the U.S. The government has the best interest to keep relations with the U.S. support so that they can consolidate their power. Taiwan attack would alienate them from growth. That's a criticism. The leader of Taiwan, Ma Ying, has asked the U.S. never to help fight a war because he wants to push for better ties with Taiwan. Ma Ying has continued promoting good ties with state through diplomacy trade packages. The conflict has been diffused and lowest in 60 years. That's the China Daily Evidence. Also, they say it's now if this never that means that the firm does nothing to do with it because it's now because of interdependence. They say deterrence to aerospace. Who cares about aerospace? You guys are the sequestration argument that should have super impact. The sequestration kill the aerospace industry. Their miscalculation doesn't solve, and nuclear deterrence will increase the burden for miscalculation and not cause the impact.
We have 3:30. Can we all stand it over?
Well, I mean, to be fair, yeah.
Yeah.
Please don't bother. Don't bother my head. Actually bothering.
I stopped the video after the 2AC, and then I recorded the rest of it. So it's just 2 separate.
Spacey when I'm in Texas. Centennial Shore. Or Centennial Shore. That would work too.
Well, it would accelerate the speed at which we can get out of this Arctic tundra.
That's another reason
I can handle
That's
I really do enjoy the glass walls here.
If I was a
I always like seeing
student though, like sitting right here and I knew someone in those classrooms.
How does
it?
it, have you ever asked him about that?
He took hand-rank classes when he was a
It's
kid.
true.
And that's what he picked that up?
No, I would get in and then I would get kicked out.
Yeah, if we're doing that.
Yeah.
I'll probably do it.
That was the Sacramento district. Come on. A little more credit. Just a little.
Okay. Manufacturing. Counterplan. Warming.
You good?
Also, we'll kind of warm the flow.
Okay. The decision of the round that you have to make is whether you think that Chinatown Memorial outweighs the mitigated risk of a food crisis or food security. Our impact outweighs for multiple reasons. We have multiple internal links. The status quo for the first argument is that nuclear primacy reduces the risk of war, but this, they've conceived the one-air framing that it's all about the defense industrial base. The foundation of nuclear primacy rests on being have a strong manufacturing base, so we can produce the types of materials and types of weapons that are necessary when it comes to war times. That's key to deterring wars and winning them. Their argument is speculative, and what do and the nuclear primacy decreases as a result of the manufacturing base. That is the only hand that evidence. Now,
Specific to air power.
also, our internal link is very specific to air power. Our evidence indicates that the only strong airspace entry is necessary to deter China, even if they win their nuclear primacy claim in the abstract. It does not take out our internal link because they have no evidence in the context of China. Now, the food prices argument does not turn the manufacturing internal link. The only reason why we would go to food is we think that growth is a good thing, but manufacturing is the only way to facilitate interdependence because it reduces the risk of conflict because the U.S. economy becomes stronger, which facilitates the global spread of goods, which means that we would never have shortages in the first place. There was a very specious claim made by the 2 and now the resilience and interdependence is a framing question. It should be in terms of long-term trends. Despite Michael Clues, explanation. The two are all of their uniqueness claim might seem rhetorically powerful, or uniqueness might seem rhetorically powerful, but they have misunderstood the thesis of our advantage. It's based off the internal and long-term sustainability of the industry. Border congestion and inefficiency at the border make collapse of the industry inevitable, but eliminating border congestion is the only way to increase manufacturing, the competitiveness and the innovation of the manufacturing sector in North America. All of our efforts are specific to the affirmative and specifically the U.S.-Mexico border. That's getting industry supply chains such as the aerospace industry and other forms of electronics and automotives which have generated spillover effect to the rest of the industry. Now the rest of the China debate. We have no high-tech technology now, which means we can't solve a China war. But regardless, all of the defense that Michael Koo has read in the Twinsie, the only Twinsie is from 2010, which means you default to recency on this evidence. A lot of evidence indicates that miscalculation intentions are at an all-time high in the China tower in China is on the brink of annexing Taiwan. It's a question of deterrence signals. The only scenario for a collapse of deterrence is if we do not have the strong manufacturing base. Our motion evidence makes a zero-sum claim and says that every time China gains in manufacturing, we lose out in manufacturing. And similarly, when we increase in manufacturing, China loses out in manufacturing. That reduces the incentive to go to conflict. Our evidence about high-level dialogue is all rhetoric. Our evidence indicates that recent studies and recent reports show a robust correlation between the fact that China is going to annex Taiwan. You default to evidence that the CSI study, which is more qualified and understands the actual geopolitical consequences